Airbnb has doubled down and removed another 5,000 hosts from the platform in what will likely be known the year that Airbnb killed the average Airbnb host. This is more than just an extension of Airbnb's mass wiping out of hosts, listings, and accounts using this new AI feature that is likely related to their purchase of a company called Game Planner AI. This first wave of cancellations came starting in March, where Airbnb secretly updated their terms of service to reflect this new circumvention policy, which forbids hosts or guests from circumventing Airbnb's policies, i.e. creating a new listing or creating a new account if you have bad reviews, or if Airbnb suspended or deactivated any of your listing. Airbnb then deployed an AI to go hunt and find listings that looked related to listings that were unlisted or duplicates after they received negative reviews. They can do this with addresses and or photo matching. There might be more parameters, but as of today, photos, descriptions, and addresses seem to be the main ways Airbnb is finding and deactivating these listings. But what's even more telling about these 5,000 hosts that have been canceled is it's not listings that's getting canceled. It's Airbnb experiences. And at the same time, Airbnb announces the launch of a new experience of their own called Icons. And this is where my wheels started turning. Airbnb is telling us exactly where they're going and where their priorities are. And when we look at Airbnb's 2024 summer release alongside of this, including what's missing from that summer release, it all starts to make sense. Airbnb has completely changed their strategy and what they believe their relationship with hosts to be moving forward. In order to tell you what's missing, I need to tell you what used to be there in these summer releases. Over the last 5 to 7 years, Airbnb has been heavy on updates, heavy on innovations, heavy on services, heavy on widgets. Airbnb, much like any other software, understands that in order to keep you from leaving them and going to another provider, they need to give you sticky products, much like Apple would say. They would give you things like the multi-calendar, scheduled messages. They'd allow you to put in rule sets and have private names for your listings and all these cool host level like enterprise widgets. All of these widgets were designed to keep you from going to places like VRBO or Booking.com. Naturally, if you loved Airbnb's features, you wouldn't use VRBO if they could solve all of your problems and provide all of your solutions in one go. But Airbnb understands now that people are using channel managers, which are widget heavy, that have all of these extra features and benefits, not including things like rule sets and 3-day discount, which Airbnb was very smart to create. VRBO not having 3 or 4 day discounts and Booking.com not having 3 or 4 day discounts allows hosts to have a much more granular revenue management strategy on Airbnb, which can provide completely different results at the end of the day. They are still features that I believe make Airbnb head and shoulders above any other OTA. That level of responsiveness is appreciated, but Airbnb sees the truth. Even with those features that we all love, Airbnb can't keep us from VRBO. They can't keep us from Booking.com. And they can't keep customers from going to VRBO or Booking.com because they gave hosts some software. Airbnb has made a lot of innovations for hosts to be greedy with that host inventory, but they've still lost that war. So with that said, that is precisely what is missing from Airbnb's summer release. Any widgets for hosts at all. They've made a comical attempt to sell a couple of features, like a better way to view your earning results, and group messages, which actually always existed, but now at the top, they show you who's in the group message. Airbnb really made no significant changes to their host level features. Airbnb made 2 big changes on the guest side. Not only did Airbnb add icons, which says everything about why Airbnb created experiences in the first place, what they were hoping they would get from the host community and what they weren't getting. We're going to talk about that. But also, they added the ability to have group wish lists, where multiple people could vote on a listing whether or not they like the listing. This is an extension of a key feature that guests got a couple of years ago, group payments. If you guys remember when Airbnb created split payments, it was made so groups of people could all pitch in and get a bigger property, where not one person had to come up with $7,000. 8 or 10 Airbnb accounts could split those payments. And you can find out when people do this because on reviews for listings, if you go down to the review, it'll say group trip on that review, meaning that the person who left the review isn't the only person that paid for the listing. Get it? Sometimes Airbnb makes a feature that sucks and they take it back, like Airbnb Teams. Sometimes Airbnb makes a feature and it speaks volumes for where they should go, like group payments. Now they have group wish lists, so when people are planning group trips overseas, like to Italy where I am now, they can create a whole wish list full of their favorite Italian listings, and people will upvote and downvote every listing, so that way they can choose the one that's right for the group, because booking is no longer an individual decision on Airbnb's most important listings. Yes, Airbnb's most important listings are the massive listings that multiple people need to come together and purchase. Airbnb's had a realization. They're not competing with VRBO. They're not competing with Booking.com. That's why Airbnb gave us hosts no reason to stay in the summer release. They gave us no widgets to keep us on the Airbnb platform. They realized that they are competing against hotels. And over the last year, Airbnb's presence in the media says this loud and clear. People are mad about inconsistency, bad hosts, cleaning fees, long checkout instructions lists, all sorts of stuff that makes hotels attractive compared to Airbnb. And Airbnb realizes something. They can't get rid of some of these things because hosts, we have rules. You want to stay at our place, it has to be worth it for us. We're not just some corporate inventory where we have no say. You staying at our property has to make sense for us too. So Airbnb cannot tell hosts what to do. And so Airbnb instead is doubling down on inventory that guests are going to pick, even though they may not like cleaning fees, even though they may not like checkout instructions. There's going to be properties that hotels will never have. So even if Airbnb can't solve these problems, there's absolutely inventory that people will go to Airbnb for always, even if they're unhappy about a couple features. Because all of those features aside, this massive house that everybody can book together and make memories is absolutely still worth it. Now, it does sound like I'm saying that the only listings that are going to survive on Airbnb are these massive 5 or 7 bedroom houses with pools and a view overlooking the Grand Canyon or something crazy like that. But that's not the case. Airbnb does have categories, and many of those categories are for smaller properties. Sure, tents, tree houses, bubble domes, stuff like that. But they also have categories like chef's kitchen or grand piano or amazing view. And some of these properties can be small. They don't have to be 5 bedroom houses. And I have verified this with my students doing one-on-one coaching in cities like Boston or Chicago or South Florida or Dallas, Southern California, Utah, Portland, everywhere, even internationally. There are studios and 1 and 2 bedroom properties that, because of the combination of location and design style and price point, they're completely full, some months in advance, and Airbnb is still dedicated to pushing the listings that make them money. What is in common with these listings and these mega houses that Airbnb is pushing is that there is always an experiential element to these listings. They're not just some simple Stay Alfred or Sonder listing that has basic furniture, basic art, basic paint, and a keyless entry on the front door. There are hosts choosing eclectic and brave design styles and creating accommodations that are in line with why people are in the areas that they're in. Much like this property here in Matera, this is built into the caves of the landscape, much like people who have lived here for the last 10,000 years have done. And because the fact that Matera is one of the oldest cities in the world and people lived in caves for 10,000 years, that's why people are coming here to hike these hillsides, experience these scenic views, see the city in all of its age and its wonder, and to soak in as much of that culture as they can. And what better way than to soak in a bathtub in the middle of a cave? This place gets it. They're providing an additive experience to the reason why someone is coming here. And this is hard to get your hands on. Sometimes hotels will beat hosts to the punch. Sometimes hotels won't be able to create something at scale that is cost effective. Much like in Philadelphia, when I first got there in 2018, there were no hotels in an area called Fishtown or Northern Liberties. Old Town, Northern Liberties, and Fishtown are all in a highly sought-after tourist area where the food, the culture, and the arts are all super progressive and picture-worthy, and people wanted to go there. But there's no hotels to accommodate, so hosts could rush to the area and provide even a basic accommodation at a high price because of sheer supply and demand. And then in other areas like Park City, Utah, or Taos, New Mexico, or Los Angeles near Disney, there are places that just take up so much square feet to give a family what they want when they travel that a hotel would have to unload massive amounts of money to acquire the properties necessary to deliver that product at scale. And for hotels, 10 years ago, this didn't make sense on paper, but it's starting to make sense now, and you will see hotels try to scoop up as much housing as they can in areas that they can get away with this because the money is there at scale, and if they could buy out every small host, they probably would. So be on the lookout for that here soon. This all circles back to the big point that average is not performing well on Airbnb. And Airbnb doesn't want to deal with the problems of shoddy, inconsistent experiences in average properties. They can't get rid of the inconsistency of working with one host and then another and then another. But the only way to make it worth their time is to focus on the listings that have the highest likelihood of providing great experiences and provide something that hotels can't give. They're hoping to create a world where people forget about all of the negative things that have happened on Airbnb in order to get a fresh start again. By getting rid of a lot of the cheap, inconsistent value price listings where the management really isn't focused on experience and quality, they can then get rid of the negative media. And as far as the 5,000 hosts that got canceled, there were a lot of good, high valued hosts, people with great ratings that got cut, because Airbnb knows something that maybe we don't all know, which is that experiences isn't a big revenue generator for them. It was another way for people to interact with the app, to have another reason to download the app, so that way people would eventually funnel into properties to book their main breadwinner, which is accommodations. And any time that a company has a secondary product, one that's not core to their business model, if trying to deliver that product leads to somebody being less likely to do business with you in the future, that was a bad product to deliver. Now, it could be that some of these tours were using Airbnb just as a way to transact dollars, getting people on the platform only to use it, and then people were making no meaningful exchanges with Airbnb outside of that use. It could be that these hosts were actually violating terms of service by getting people to spend money offline. There could be a lot of reasons that we don't know that could be the reason why these high-reviewed, high-rated hosts are gone. But if we look at it for what we believe to be the simplest answer, Airbnb cut 5,000 hosts where the delivery of that product was out of alignment with their long-term goal, which is to funnel people in to magical experiences and accommodations. When we put this and Airbnb icons together, it makes a clear statement about what Airbnb is trying to do. Airbnb wants to create this halo effect with their product, where people who aren't ready to book a $10,000 accommodation can still do cool stuff on the Airbnb app. Go see a property from their favorite Pixar or Marvel movie, and that keeps Airbnb first in mind when people stop and ask themselves, what can I do to have an amazing spring break or summer vacation? Where can I go that's going to make my time off worth it? Airbnb wants everybody to think about them over hotels and VRBO and Booking.com, because not only do they have the products that hotels can't acquire, but they also have these experiences that Booking.com and VRBO would never touch, telling people that we understand what you want and what you need with your valuable time off. We're going to make your 1 week off the best week of your life. They're trying to use experiences as a way to build confidence for booking accommodations in the future. There's a phrase that is commonly used in sales. Second money is easier to get than first money. Get someone to fall in love with a $50 purchase on Airbnb, and they will make a $5,000 purchase later. I've left links for the research on this video down in the description. Check them out. And if you think that I missed anything, or you have a different opinion about what you think is going on, put it down in the comments. I'd like to check out your perspective, and maybe it'll become a video in the future. Thank you so much for watching this one, my friends. And as always, I will see you on the other side.